Hey friends, it's Simon Hurley and welcome to another video. Today I'm participating in Courtney Krieber's blog hop. She recently hit 10,000 subscribers. She's a part of my design team and she's uber talented, so I wanted to join along today and create some fun cards, so be sure to check out the other people on the hop once you're done watching. Today I'm creating some shaped interlocking gatefold cards. You guys seemed to love this one that I made when I did my release video, so I showed how to make this one and another one using some of my new stamps. So without further ado, let's get right into it. Alright, so I'm using the road trip stamp set for my first card, and I love this one because it's got images to color in, but it also has lots of solid and bold images, and I'm going to use those to create today's card. I'm starting off with a piece of stark white cardstock, and I'm going to be using my Simon Hurley Create inks to stamp down these palm trees all over my background. Now the key to making these kind of fun shaped gatefold cards and making your own backgrounds for them is to stamp images over the center line, but not stamp them directly on top or too far over. If you want to, you could even draw your center line right now to make sure you don't go too far in the center. You want some images more on the left side and some images more on the right side, and you also want them to hang into the center, but only just by a little bit, because we're going to be cutting around those a little bit later. So the solid version of this palm tree, which I'm using right now, has two different steps to it to create the top part in green and the bottom part in a brown color. So then you can see as it kind of progresses, I'm just concentrating them on either side, and you can always kind of make a curved line around the center, which is exactly what you want. And I'm just going to fill out my background with images. And I'm going to share later how to do this with a background stamp, which is a little bit easier because the background is already created for you, but it's not super difficult to just go in and stamp down images like this. And don't be afraid to let your images hang off the edge, and also have some of them coming in from the edge. You can see some little palm tree branches coming in on the edges, and that just makes it look more like a piece of beautiful pattern paper. To finish this off, I'm going to go in with a little bit of my minty fresh color and do some ink blending on the edges. I'm just going in really lightly and adding this kind of neutral mint color. It ties the whole thing together, gets rid of a little bit of that stark white cardstock around the edge, and kind of brings the whole background with a cohesive feel. You could skip this step if you want, but I really think it adds a lot to it. So then once I'm done with that, I can then kind of go in and create my outline for cutting down the center for the gatefold card. I'm going in here with my ruler, and I'm just going to measure out the center and put 2 points, one at the top and one at the bottom, and then I'm going to connect this line down the center. But instead of drawing through all of my stamping and having to make marks there that I'll have to erase later, I'm just going to go in and connect these lines only in places where there aren't palm trees. So in any of that white area, I'm just drawing a line down the center of that card, and that's where we're going to eventually make the cuts down the card. Now I'll show you a little bit of an easier way to do this with a paper trimmer later. However, if you just have a scissors, this is a really easy way to go about it. Just follow that straight line down your card with your scissors, and whenever you come into contact with a image, for here it's the palm trees, I just gently go around it with my scissors, and I'm very careful when I'm doing it. I'm careful not to bend either side of the cardstock so it all looks really nice and neat, because we're using both pieces in the end. And I'll share a little bit of a way to flatten out any imperfections in just a second here. But I'm just going around, and I also like to avoid any real pointed edges too. I tend to kind of round out any of the edges because it makes it a little bit easier when we're interlocking the pieces in the card at the end. Just go slow on this part because you want both sides to look really nice, and if you need to, pull your scissors out and go at it at a different angle, and that might help to make the line nice and smooth. Now to get rid of any imperfections, like I said, if any cardstock is sticking up in weird places, going with a bone folder to flatten everything out is going to make it look perfect. I'm not going to go too in detail on this part because I'm not great at the whole math thing, but I'm using a 5.5 inch tall card base here, and I'm going to make the center portion 4 1/4 inches, just like a normal A2 size card, but I'm scoring so I have little flaps on either side, and this is going to be where I adhere those panels down that I created. Now here I'm using score tape just to hold it down really nice and strong. You could also use your favorite liquid adhesive or tape runner. And I'm just going to adhere this first one at that top corner and then kind of follow it down to make sure it's all lined up. And then on the other side, it's important to line up the center instead of the edge, just so that it lines up really nicely in the center, and any excess that's hanging off the other edge can just be trimmed off. So this is going to make sure it meets up perfectly in the center of your card. Alright, so once that's all complete, I just love how that interlocks together with that fun fold, and you can really do this with lots of different images, which is super cool. So now I'm going to create a band to hold this all together, and I'm just using the Sending Sunshine and Hugs image from that same road trip stamp set in my MISTI stamping tool, and I'm just going to stamp this a couple different times. Now first I'm using this slippery and wet color, and then I'm going to go in with traffic cone and an ink blending tool, and I'm just going to add the color around the edges. To do this, I'm using the ink blending tool to get a nice soft blend between the color. I find you have to stamp it several times though, so I'm doing this in the MISTI, but it just creates this beautiful, smoothly shaded edge. So once that's all complete, I'm going to go in with some clear embossing powder, and I'm just sprinkling on some right after I'm done stamping, and my ink actually will take the embossing powder if you do it quick enough. And then I'm going to heat set this so it turns clear, and then again, act quick enough, and if you do it, your embossing powder will still be hot and you can throw over a couple more layers of clear embossing powder. So I'm going to keep doing that just to build up the layer of the clear embossing, and it gives this nice thick coat of kind of gloss to it. So then to create the band to hold it all together, I'm using a piece of vellum and I'm just lightly folding it around the edge of my card here. I do this pretty loosely and add a little bit of extra room so that it's easy to slip around the card. I'm adding a little bit of adhesive on the back to hold it all together, and then I'm going to slip that around my card and add down the sun on the center of that vellum band. Here is a closer look at that finished card. I just love that glossy sun in the center, and then once you pull off that band, the cool interlocking gatefold is really unique, and I just love how it looks, and you could do this with many different images. So now let's move on to using a background stamp for this technique. Now here I'm using the new Luau background stamp from Simon Hurley Create, but you just want a background with different images that you can kind of focus on. So I'm stamping this down using some jet black archival ink, and I'm just stamping down in the center of my background. And this is because I noticed that there was different flowers that were kind of overlapping on the center line, but they weren't directly in the center, which I said was pretty important. So again, if you act quick with the jet black archival ink, you can go in with a little bit of clear embossing powder, and this is going to create a nice barrier when I go in and do some watercoloring. But if you just want to heat emboss this with gold and leave it uncolored, you totally could do that too. To watercolor this in, I've just smooshed my Simon Hurley Create inks down onto my craft sheet, and I'm picking them up with a water brush and just quickly going in to color everything in. Now I'm going to turn on a little bit of music, and I'll be back to finish off the card once this is complete. Right now, I'm going to pick it up here because I wanted to just explain, for the background here, I'm using a little bit of Clear Skies, which is a pretty bright blue color, but I'm going in with tons of water to dilute it down, and then I can go in and just do a light wash over the whole background. This is a really easy way to get a nice light background color, and I love that with these inks, you can kind of take a color and make it a lot lighter by just diluting it with lots of water. So that's a really great tip. Dilute it all on your surface, and that way you have a nice even coat of the same color as well. So then once I'm done with that, I'm then going in with my paper trimmer, and on this one it has a little bit of a guide, but you just want one of these slide paper trimmers to go in between those images and cut that out. Now this isn't too much easier than just going in with the scissors, but it's just going to make sure you have a nice straight line. So if you already have one of these trimmers, it's going to be nice and easy. Then all you need to do is go in and just go right around those images, right up to that straight line you've already cut. It just makes it a little bit easier to not have to cut down that straight line as well, and just go around those tiny little pieces that need to be interlocked. Now again, same thing, you can go in with a bone folder to smooth out any areas that kind of pucker up in the end. So once I'm finished going around those images and cutting them out, I'm then going to kind of figure out how it all interlocks and create another card. So here it is kind of interlocked there. I've added those pieces down onto my card. Again, I just kind of followed that same card form in the end. And here for the sentiment, I'm just using the "You Are Such a Blessing" sentiment from my Doodle Florals stamp set. And I'm just heat embossing this onto a piece of black cardstock. Now for this I went in with some alcohol markers and I colored over top, which sticks nicely to the embossing, but it does kind of eat a little bit away at that white embossing powder and leave a weird residue on the tip of your markers, so I wouldn't recommend it, but it does look kind of cool once you're all complete. So once I'm done with that, I'm just going to go in with my adhesive and adhere it only halfway on there so that it sticks to one side of the card and not the other. That way it doesn't seal the whole thing closed and it still interlocks nicely once it's all complete. So here is a look at that card once it's all finished. I love how that nicely interlocks and that fun colored background. It was easy to just stamp on the background stamp and then cut in between to make that cool interlocking portion. Alright, if you guys enjoyed the video, please give it a big thumbs up and be sure to subscribe to my channel. It really helps me out and I would love to see you guys again around here soon. Courtney is being super awesome and spoiling all of you guys with giveaways. So today we're giving away the road trip stamp set that I used in today's video. So be sure to leave comments on everybody's videos, tell me which card you liked best from today to enter yourself to win. Alright, I'll see you guys very soon for another card making and crafting video. Have a great day. Bye!